crisp autumn day with the bluest of skies. That date was September 11th, 2001. At 8:46 a.m., a plane hit the North Tower of the World Trade Center in New York City, and at 9:03 a.m., another plane hit the South Building of the Twin Towers, and America was changed forever. Combat veteran and National Guardsman John Byrne was sitting in a classroom when he heard about the terror attack.
His instincts rather kicked in, and he went to the nearest armory to await his assignment. He was sent downtown where mangled iron from the towers intertwined with human remains. He saw rescue dogs become depressed from the mission. He worked from midnight to noon for weeks at what is now known as Ground Zero. He soon deployed to fight in what was then known as the War on Terror. Today, Byrnes has a lot to say about those wars. He thought it was worth taking a minute to hear him remember and also look forward. He's with us now to reflect. Thank you for joining us.
Oh, happy to be on, Jessica. Thank you for having me.
So, why don't you tell us what you think of that day, 9/11, and its aftermath, now looking back?
Well, every year this day, it's just very sad. I just get that little bit of grief. Hearing you describe my experiences was almost otherworldly. Usually I'm the one telling all of that. But it's a sad day. You know, I lost friends that day at Ground Zero, right? I had 5 friends who were in the tower that morning. I had other friends who lost family members that day. It was horrific. It was a war zone in my hometown, a big city, but my hometown to me. And it was a trying 2 weeks then. We lost 2,977 people that morning. And if you add everything up since then, we've lost over 40,000 people since then around the events that happened that day. So it's a big day that really has affected America terribly.
It affected us all so much. I remember everyone who was alive at the time, remembers right where they were when they heard the news. I was in the 8th grade. They wheeled in at the time, they put in the TV so we could watch the news. Everybody at school watched the news. My parents, who didn't usually watch the news regularly, they had it on all day and all night. I remember talking to my friends about it on what was AOL Instant Messenger at the time. It was something that the country went through together. Honestly, which is almost weird to think of now in our era of just intense polarizations around news subjects and policy subjects. That was a moment of national grief and national unity. What do you think has changed since then?
Well, you hit the nail on the head there. That day and the days thereafter, we came together as a country. We were united in our grief, in our anger, and in our resolve to do something about it. And we have become so divided as a nation. And I was thinking about this. I wrote a little blurb about it to email out to some of the Concerned Veterans for America followers. And we were so united then. We're so divided now. And the thing is that you look at the political debates, you look at the policy arguments. It's clear that most people in those debates want what's best for their families, want what's best for their friends and neighbors, wants what's best for the people they care about. We just disagree about how to get that done in a lot of cases. But that disagreement, if we remember how united we were on September 12th, 2001 and September 13th, 2001, it might help us get past some of these divides a little bit and at least be more civil about how we talk to each other about them. And I think that's really important. The only way we're going to solve big problems is by having discussions that respect both sides of the dialogue.
What do you make of some of the decisions made by George W. Bush and others afterwards to send service members off to war, people who are feeling extremely patriotic, wanting to defend their families, their country, and their communities? What do you make of some of those decisions and how that might impact future generations from wanting to serve?
Well, I do my best not to politicize September 11th. I will say that as a younger, because I wasn't that young, a younger soldier, I was a student of international relations on that day. I was studying essentially international relations through a realism perspective. But I thought that the war in Afghanistan certainly was warranted. I ended up believing that the war in Iraq was warranted. And personally, I've come to change my mind about the war in Iraq and to change my mind about how long the war in Afghanistan went on. And again, not only did I lose 5 friends on September 11th, but I've lost dozens to combat and to suicide since then. So again, we were united that day. I hope united we can take a retrospective and see that, maybe we do more to prevent terrorism in the future. And I think we've done a pretty good job of that in the last 23 years. But when it comes to sending young men and women from America overseas, it takes a little perspective. It takes a little bit of wisdom to make sure that we're not doing it in the wrong way. We're not doing it for the wrong reason.
You know, I don't think veterans issues came up once at the debate last night. I can't recall. I guess if it came up in June, it certainly wasn't a significant enough part of the conversation between Biden and Trump for me to recall that it took place. You know, what is the state of the kind of care our veterans get? You talk about losing friends, you know, not just overseas, but actually to suicide when they return here, when they try to deal with what they dealt with over there. How is our country failing to take care of our veterans?
Well, you know, hours before the debate, there was a hearing in the House Veterans Affairs Committee. Chairman Bost and some of the other members held senior VA officials to account, at least did their best to. There's obviously some, you know, endemic failure in the bureaucracy that is the VA. We saw that with the bonus scandals. Again, 10 years later with bonus scandals in the past year. Where money that was meant to treat veterans was going to give senior officials bonuses, significant six-figure bonuses, in fact. And at the same time, there's a demand for mental health care at the VA that's not being met. And the VA is in many of those cases refusing to refer those veterans in need of mental health care out to the community care. And this is creating, or, you know, exacerbating the suicide and mental health crisis that veterans have. And it's a crisis across America. And you touched on it a little earlier with the question about, you know, how the military is doing and how this is affecting the military. Recruiting is down. And, you know, the military has been a family business since the end of the Vietnam War. You know, fathers and uncles encouraging sons and daughters to go into the military because some of the opportunity it offers, especially those who aren't college bound. But this recruiting crisis that the military is feeling right now has got to be in some way related to the wasteful lives that we've seen over the last 20 plus years, and to the fact that it doesn't look to young men and women like the VA is going to take care of them if they do go overseas.
John, I'm curious, as someone who was, I believe, in first grade when this all happened, I probably wouldn't remember it if it weren't for my father getting on a plane that day and JFK being our closest airport. But there's a lot of younger people that don't remember 9/11 or weren't around for it that are now paying attention to politics, getting a sense of the world. What would you say to those young people about this day?
Well, you know, I remember being a little older than you guys. I remember being in first grade in the 70s and hearing about Pearl Harbor and how much that affected us. And, you know, in 1970, 71, 72, World War II still loomed over the country. You know, Vietnam was still going on at that point, but World War II was a pivotal moment. Pearl Harbor was a pivotal moment. So I would say to young people that, you know, the things that have happened from the wars that we fought in, the campaigns that we fought in since 2001, the politicians that we picked to lead us at almost every level, the way the police and, you know, the FBI and other bureaucracies in the government, the VA do business was all affected by that day. That day really changed the way Americans feel about a lot of things, and it changed the way many levels of our government and many parts of that system do business today. So it had a huge impact on the country.
John, thank you so much for coming on, and thank you for your service. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. Always happy to talk about this day, even when I'm not happy about it.
Of course. Well, that does it for us on Rising for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. I was losing track of what day it even is. We've gone through so much politics with the debate last night. Hope you enjoyed our commentary on that. We'll be back with another episode of the show tomorrow. Please be sure to like, share, and subscribe so you never miss any of our content. And for those of you who like to listen while on the go, we're now available anywhere you listen to podcasts. See you later.